Hey guys, welcome back to Dude We Can Fix It. Today I'm going to show you how to change out a wheel bearing on your truck or car. In the previous video, we did a wheel bearing diagnostic to where we located which wheel bearing was making the noise and was faulty. So if you need to do the diagnostic, check that out. And in this video, we're going to show you how to actually take the wheel bearing off and put the new wheel bearing on. Check it out. So since we have everything out of the way at this point, we have the wheel bearing itself exposed. This is a four-wheel drive, so we need to remove the wheel axle nut. And if you have a car, you will also have an axle nut on the front because most cars are front wheel drive. So go ahead and take this nut off. If you have a cotter pin or other locking device, make sure you take that out first. So now that we have the axle nut off, this is held on by 4 bolts on the back side, so go ahead and take those off. Yeah.
Definitely get a kill.
All right, all 4 bolts are out. Now we're going to try to remove the hub assembly and bearing. There we go, just pulls out like that. Now we are ready to prep this area for the new wheel bearing. There is still some residual grease in here, which is a good thing from when this was installed. However, I am going to go ahead and wipe out the bore and get all this nasty road grime out of here. This will make it easier when we go to slide in the new wheel bearing because there's very little tolerance in here, meaning that if there's a little bit of trash in here, this wheel bearing's not gonna wanna go in. And also the face of the CV axle needs to be clean. These splines need to be clean. We're dealing with tight tolerances. You got trash, dirt, stuff like that in here. It's gonna make it very difficult to get all this stuff put back on. So now we got that wiped out. We're going to get a little bit of grease. Right here I just have some high temp wheel bearing grease. We're going to lube the inside of this bore here. We're also going to lube these splines. Now, I probably used a little bit too much for demonstrating purposes here, but that's okay. This will make it much easier when we install this new wheel bearing. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to apply a little bit of grease to the outside bore of this wheel bearing, and then a little bit to the inside bore where the CV axle is going to slide into. That being said, right here at this seam, we want to make sure that this is dry so it doesn't encourage dirt to build up, because this is actually a seal, a dust seal that keeps dirt and grime out. So we want to make sure that this surface is clean and dry. There we go. Now we are ready to install this piece. We're going to need our dust shield to be on here as well. All right, so I just realized that I had my dust shield on backwards and the rotor would not fit on, so I just took this off, flipped that around to where it is deeper this way, because it was like this, now it's deeper. So before you assemble this, make sure that your dust shield goes back on the same way that it came off. I'll pop a couple of bolts through the back. Actually, just that one bolt seems to work, just to help hold this dust shield in place as we're setting this on there. All right, now we are ready to go ahead and start installing our wheel bearing. We're going to slide it on over the CV axle, try to get it to spline in. Go. Now I'm going to go ahead and start the 4 bolts on the back side just to hold this in place. There we go. It's 1. It's 2. All right, now that we have all 4 of those in hand tight, I will go ahead and tighten them down with a ratchet. For this vehicle, these 4 bolts are to be torqued to 133 foot-pounds. Now, depending on the vehicle that you're working on, you may need to Google or look up the torque specs for that vehicle. Normally, you can just type in the make, model, and year of your vehicle and type in, for this center one right here, your CV axle nut torque spec, and these back here are going to be your wheel bearing bolt torque specs. $133 foot-pounds. All right, now we are ready to put our axle nut back on. So on this specific vehicle, this is a 2007 Chevy 2500 four-wheel drive. This axle nut is supposed to be torqued to 177 foot-pounds. If you have a different vehicle, it may be different, so definitely look it up and make sure that you have the right torque spec. Also, if you have a cotter pin or other locking mechanism, make sure you put that back in there. All right, so now that we have the wheel bearing and hub assembly fully installed, all of our bolts and our nut torqued down to spec, we have our ABS sensor wiring clipped up out of the way. If you have that on your vehicle, make sure that's in place. Before you assemble this, make sure that your dust shield goes back on the same way that it came off. All right, let's go ahead and throw our brake rotor on here. There we go. Now we are ready for our caliper bracket. I have mine dressed with some Loctite to make sure that these don't back out. Probably nice and crusty by now because I had to take that thing back off. So we'll get the top and bottom threaded in by hand. All right, so now I'm lubing up the brake caliper pins. That way they can slide in and out easily. I'm about due for a new bottle of grease. It's being a little finicky getting these brake pads back in, so we just kind of skipped over that. But I got the brake pads on. Now we need to go ahead and put our caliper back in. As you can see, I already have this compressed all the way back down. So we'll go ahead and slide this in place. Once you get it over your brake pads, take your lubed guide pins and place them in. While we have the tire off still, we're going to go ahead and route our ABS sensor wire back where the original one was. So we'll just pop this little thing open here. Honestly, it looks like it was supposed to grab like that. And then I will get under the hood and connect that here in a minute. All right, so now we can go ahead and throw our tire back on here. What you hear here is just the brake pad rubbing against the rotor. Go ahead. All right, now we got our wheel back on. Now we can spin our tire and we can listen. Very quiet. And look how long it spins. Well guys, that's how you change out a wheel bearing and hub assembly on your car or truck. I hope you found this to be informative and useful. Please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on your bell notifications for future videos. And as always, dude, we can fix it.